Hello, my friend, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Fool Writes Again, the podcast where I, Jinx, your host and imaginary friend, answers the burning question of what happens when you release a writer into the wild and he gets a chance to explore the world. So have you ever been interested in plot development, world building, character creation, or even character motivation? Then this is a podcast for you, so please stay tuned. Starting this episode off, I'll answer how I got my inspiration from exploring the world of weddings, though that fancies you at all. Hopefully you enjoy what I have to offer. With that being said, let's get the show on the road and start off with a couple scenarios. First one being this. Imagine you're an individual who got invited to your best friend's wedding, and you have to travel to a whole new state for it at a city you've never been to before. That doesn't really bother you, because you like to travel and you really want to try to visit everywhere you can. So you book your hotel, you book your flights, RSVP to the wedding, and before you go, your buddy tells you that on the day of the wedding, you are required to meet the rest of the wedding goers at this one hotel so a bus can take you to the actual venue. He won't be there to greet you because he'll have gone to the venue earlier in the day. And that makes sense to you. He has a lot to do to prepare for it. It's his wedding. He might have to do a couple of run-throughs and rehearsals before everything actually starts. So the day of the wedding gets there, and you wake up, get ready at your hostel, and start walking to the other hotel. It's a mile away, and you see a lot of other people there. You don't think anything of it. You get to the hotel that you're all supposed to meet at, and you see a whole bunch of people waiting in the lobby. You recognize some of them, and you don't recognize others. You walk up to one of them and ask, "Hey, is this the wedding party?" And they say yes. You ask again, "Is this where everyone is meeting for the bus?" And they say yes. And you say, "Cool, I'm in the right place." And you all sit around there. You walk out to the street for a minute. You don't see a bus show up. You go back into the lobby. Someone else walks out to the street. They see a bus. They come in and tell you, "Hey, look, the bus is here." And you go out with everyone else, and sure enough, there is a bus. And you all start filing onto the bus, because that is what you were told to do. That when the bus shows up, you were supposed to get on it, and it would take you to the wedding. And you get on the bus, everyone else is on there, you find your seats, doors close, and it starts moving. As the bus goes, you're looking out the window and you realize you're getting farther and farther away from the city. Buildings are dwindling in number, people are disappearing, and now you're completely in the countryside. You ask someone else, like, "Is this the direction of the venue?" And they tell you, "No, you have all got on the wrong bus. What happens next?" If that one's not quite your thing, how about this scenario instead? Imagine you are an individual who really just wanted to go out drinking. It's been a rough week. Work sucked. Everyone else around you has plans and are out of town. So you have to go out drinking by yourself. And you decide to go to a popular drinking district in your town. You don't think anything of it because you've been there a couple times before. And you get to one of the bars there. Mind you, you've hopped around to a couple of them and you settled on one that you really like. And then it appears to be a large party inside the place. And you think to yourself, this place has never been this crowded before. But you like it. You start talking with the others and all the newcomers. You recognize some as locals and regulars. But a lot of them are complete mystery to you. But you can tell they're all part of one group because they're all dressed similarly. All wearing Hawaiian-themed clothing. And you're like, cool. They seem like fun people. You start getting to know them and getting to know them more and more, and you realize they're all part of the same party and they all have a wedding to go to the next day. And you think this is a great place to get married. And as you sit there and party with them all, you eventually get your own invite to the wedding. What happens next? How about this scenario instead? Imagine you're an individual and you really like to drink beer. And you have a goal in life, along with a buddy of yours, to visit all your favorite breweries in the world. So one day, the two of you decide to book a trip to visit one brewery in another state that you both really like. You buy your plane ticket, you book a hotel, you even reserve a time with the brewery to make sure that you can go. The day of the trip arrives, you get there, you spend some time cleaning up, and then you're on your way to the brewery. And you arrive and you think this is a pretty innocuous place. You don't think much of it at all. It's kind of hidden away on a back street. But like, some of the best beer in the world comes from this place. And I am finally at the location of where it is brewed. And you're excited to go inside. You get in there, and you don't see very many people around. There's a couple bartenders and employees, and the opening room is pretty grand. There's a lot of casks and barrels on the walls. There's a projector hanging from the ceiling. One entire wall is lined with beer taps and a bar. And you're like, okay, cool. You walk up to one of the employees and ask, hey, we called earlier for a tour of the place. And like, oh yes, you two are finally here. Give me a moment and I'll bring you back. And while you're waiting for that, they allow you to have a drink of any of the beers on tap, and you get a glass full of one of your favorites and start drinking it. Once that beer is finally gone, the employee says, if you will, please follow me to the back. And you two line up behind him and follow him into the back sections of the brewery. It's pretty cool looking. The floor is changed, so now it's easy. If drips are on there, it's easily be cleaned. Concrete covering, but there's lots of barrels and casks and equipment everywhere and machinery. You can tell it's quite a bit warmer too. He shows you the process and describes how he got some of his ideas for the place. And as you start following back further and further into the brewery, you realize there are more and more stains on the floor. And you're like, huh. You would think they would clean up their spilled beer every now and then. And you get farther and farther, and the stains keep getting larger, and the puddles are larger and larger, and now you can see that they're kind of red in color, to the point where you eventually get back to the very last room and realize there's no one else around you, except for you two and the brewmaster. Like, he looks at you and says, thanks for your interest. Now, if you will, you'll become part of our next batch of beer. What happens next? Now that scenario might have been a little dark for some. So in order to fix that, I have a final scenario for you. It's kind of different. Imagine you're an individual who really likes music. I know it's surprising based on the last couple of episodes I've had, but you really like music and you chose to go to a concert. You get tickets that are pretty good seats. You're like 3 rows back from the stage. You're there with your significant other, and eventually the artist starts playing a song about weddings. And you're so engrossed in the music, your eyes close as you're just listening, bobbing back and forth to it, and when they finally open up, you realize you're no longer at the concert. You're no longer at the venue. You are now standing at an altar with a person opposite you who is not your significant other. A quick scan around the room shows that you have now been transported to a random wedding, and you are now one of the main people involved in it. Who are you marrying, and what happens next? I think that's enough with scenarios for today. So let's move along, my friend. The inspiration for these couple scenarios came from a few different places. The main focus of it is that recently I was invited to my buddy's wedding, and it was in a city I had never been to. And since I've known him for over a decade, I decided I was going to go, and I couldn't miss his wedding. I wasn't initially going to get an invite based on his consideration that I'd been super busy with school, work, and traveling, so he wasn't even sure if I'd be in the States. But I was, and I told him I would go. So I got my RSVP in, I booked my hostel, I booked my plane tickets, and mind you, I got a hostel that was well away from the wedding party because I didn't want to spend the amount they had on their lodging. since I had been traveling so much. I didn't want to afford that. And then I went. My hostel was pretty cool. I'd been used to them after traveling across Peru and staying in lots of hostels there, so I stayed in one there. It was pretty nice. This kind of led to the scenario about the bar. Before the wedding, we all decided that we were going to go party and have fun in the drinking district. I was part of the wedding group, so I kind of reversed roles for this scenario, but we all went out to a couple different bars, and I thought to myself, what do others think of the situation? There are a whole bunch of people here who are just drinking and partying and all dressed in Hawaiian clothing. If someone who is a local saw this, what would they think? Would they try to meet up with them and party and hang out? Probably. And since we were all there drinking and partying, it wasn't unlike us to turn away from anyone else who was joining us because we're there to have a good time. It wouldn't surprise me at all if anyone had invited some random person to the wedding, because you get enough alcohol on people, they do stupid things, they invite people, and they become super friendly. It happens. With the scenario in mind of getting a random invite to a random wedding, that can take you any number of places, though. So, hence my scenario of what happens next. You can turn that into whatever you want it to be. That continues along into the next part and the bus ride. The day after that drinking episode, my buddy told everyone that we were supposed to meet at his hotel at like 7 in the morning so we can catch a bus to their wedding. And we're like, okay, we'll do that. He wasn't there to guide us or anything. We all showed up at the lodging and the location we were all supposed to meet, and there wasn't a bus there, and we were all confused, so we waited around, and eventually a bus did show up. But when we looked at the bus, it didn't look like a wedding bus or something that was going to take us where we were going to go. There were signs on it for an amusement park, and we're like, that must be the bus for someone else. We didn't get on it. We sat around waiting for another bus to show up to pick us up, because we really didn't want to go to a different place. That would have been weird and it would have sucked, because knowing our luck, we would have got on that bus, it would have taken us to a amusement park, and we would have then had to call an Uber to take us to the actual wedding and spend money on something we didn't need to in the first place. After a couple minutes of waiting, no other bus showed up, so one of the group actually decided to go and ask the bus driver where they were going, and they said, we're here to pick up the wedding party. Cool. So we all filed on, and it actually did take us to the brewery where the wedding was being held, and it was fine. Simple. Yes, it was a lot farther away than I realized, but it was still in town, and it still led to questions of, what if we hopped on the wrong bus? That carries me to the next scenario of traveling for the brewery. My buddy decided to hold his wedding in a brewery, and it was awesome. Different venue, and it was a brewery that I really enjoyed. And because of that, we were all able to get tours of the back of the room and how they do their process and brew beer. And a couple of us went at a few at a time. I was one of the first ones to get a tour, to go back, and I step into the back area and realized it was quite humid. Temperature increased significantly. It looked like it was a brewery. You could see everywhere they were working on different types of beer, brewing it. Mind you, I don't know the process of that at all, but I could see the equipment, I could see the casks, I could see the barrels, and I could see the stains on the floor from where they'd spilled beer and other stuff. We went around and we kept going further and further into the building, and eventually there was nowhere else we could really go. And since there was very few of us, it led to questions of what happens if there was a nefarious individual here and we didn't survive our tour. In my scenario, I said only 2 of us went, and we were both back there together, so no one in the front party would have noticed us missing because that party didn't exist. In my initial thought and inspiration for it, a small group went back and left the party behind. So eventually the party may realize that, oh, look, two people aren't here, and they may think to themselves that they just left the group altogether and left the wedding or something like that. So I kind of changed it. But this scenario itself was also inspired by a brewery trip me and my buddy made years ago. In this trip, we decided that we really wanted to visit a very specific brewery so we can try one of their beers on tap. So we hopped in the car one day, early in the morning, and drove across state lines. And drove for hours until we eventually got to the brewery so we could just try that beer. We tried the beer, it was fantastic, we got in the car and we went home. So I kind of combined those two scenarios together to make my one scenario of two people traveling across the country to visit one brewery, along with getting the tour that was offered at the wedding. But I'm a writer, so I can combine stories all I want and make them how I want. And then the final scenario was a little bit different. After coming back from the wedding, I ended up going to a concert. Surprise, surprise. And it was a Billy Idol concert, and it was fantastic. He put on a much better show than I anticipated. And he played lots of songs, including one about a wedding. And I'm thinking to myself, what if you listen to this one song randomly, and now you are part of that wedding? Are you transported to it? Do you go through with the wedding? Are you there with your significant other? Are you forced to go to the wedding? Do you run away? Who knows? That's a lot of possibilities for one story or a couple different stories. And it's possible that this wedding party that you've been transported to has been trying to get a groom for years, and that every time they've tried recently, the groom has ran away. And now you're like their final attempt. Do you run away and make them fail their plan for some reason? Or do you stay and actually help them succeed with whatever they're doing? It's weird, but it could lead to a whole bunch of different stories. I don't know how many people listening would find quite the inspiration they do from a wedding. Delete that. Moving along from the stories and the inspiration behind the scenarios, let's talk about how a writer can use this inspiration. You've probably realized after listening to enough of my episodes that my inspiration comes from asking questions. And a lot of the time it's not asking questions out loud, it's just me thinking to myself, what could go wrong? Or what could go right? Wrong is an easy one for me because I'm a horror writer, and everything in a horror story is pretty much going wrong. Nothing goes right for your cast. But if you really want a romance and you have an individual who is lovesick and wants to get married, what goes right for them is that they've been transported to a wedding that is arranged, and they absolutely are fascinated by the person they've been arranged to marry. It doesn't have to be a negative story. Inspiration can easily flip however you want it. Weddings you don't usually think are nefarious, but they can. It happens all the time. Shotgun wedding, to being forced to marry someone because you got them pregnant. That's not necessarily a happy thing. That can be very nefarious and dark, but a wedding can be super happy also, based on where you are. We're going to have a wedding, and we're going to do a getaway wedding, and now we're all in Bali, enjoying the beach and the weather, and celebrating our friends getting married. So if you never thought about it, a wedding is a fantastic plot point for most stories. It gives you a way to get people out of their town, and now they're in a new location because they want to celebrate their friends. It's a way to get people around others that they don't know. I don't know how many weddings you've been to, my friend, but every one I've been to, I can guarantee I have not known every single person in that room. I could look around and recognize a few of them. I could look around and not recognize a lot more. And then, because of that, I can ask a person, hey, do you know who so-and-so is on the other side of the room? Like, oh, I think they're related to the bride. Or, oh, I think they're the cousin of the groom. You get a lot of I thinks. So in a wedding, it's very easy to hide a person that's not supposed to be there. because not everyone's going to recognize them. Even the bride and the groom are probably not going to recognize every single person in the room. Hey, darling, who's that over there? Oh, I think that's this new, partner for my cousin. That's their +1. That must be the mother-in-law for so-and-so. It's easy to hide the person, and you can play with that as a story item. Who's not supposed to be at the wedding, and why are they at the wedding? Are they there simply to enjoy the beer and free food? Or are they there for some nefarious means? Are they hunting someone in the wedding? Are they just hiding from the law? And they were running from someone, and they saw a wedding, and they decided to step into it, and no one else would have thought they were there. Possibilities there. When it comes to location, a getaway wedding brings your characters out of their norm, out of their familiar area, and now they have culture shock. Do they get lost in the new place? Are they in a place that's actually dangerous and they accidentally walk down the wrong street? Do they miss their flights so they don't show up to the wedding? Are they at the wedding coming home and they miss their flights and now they're stuck in a foreign country? Do they lose their passports? Do they find romance and now they want to move to the new country? Is that romance fake? Who knows? Location-wise, there's a lot of plot points there. It's also a great way to introduce new characters. You have a friend group that is consistent of 4 characters, and you don't know how to introduce a new character into your story. But what if one of your characters is dating someone else and they decide to get married? And at the wedding, you realize that the sister of one of those characters is a pretty cool person. You start asking the sister to hang out with your group, and now you have 5 characters because you met a new character at a wedding. As a writer, you can pull lots of use and inspiration from these weddings. It's just a matter of how you want to use it and what you're going to do with it. I can keep going on and on, but I'm hitting the point in the episode where I have to start calling it a day and letting you go, my friend. But before I do, I have a writing prompt for you. Write a story about an individual who flew to another country to attend his buddy's wedding. But before he could return home, he lost his passport. What happens in that story? Now, I don't care what genre it is. It could be horror, it could be fantasy, romantasy, anything like that. I don't care the format, if it's long fiction, flash fiction, short fiction, poetry. All I really care about is that you have fun with it and make it your own. If the story is something you scrap and trash, that's okay. It may have led to other inspiration. If it's a story that you decide to actually submit, cool. I hope you do well with that submission. But again, all I really care about is that you make the story your own and have fun with it, because that is how writing should be. But it really is time for me to go and call it a day. If you enjoyed the content of this week's episode, please like and subscribe. And if you have any writer friends out there, send them my way. Also, feel free to check out more content at jinksdworld.com. That is JINKSDWORLD.com. Or if you're not interested in that, tune into the next episode where Jinx answers the question of what happens when you release a writer into the wild and he gets to explore the world of public transportation. Ta-ta and have a good one.